The city was quiet that evening, the streets glowing under pale neon signs. People hurried past each other, faces down, eyes fixed on their own problems. In the middle of that rush stood a young alien woman, her clothes torn, her skin covered with dust and marks. She held something tightly in her hand, $3 crumpled and damp from her grip. Her eyes searched the street with desperation. She was not asking for food, not asking for shelter. She was only searching for someone kind enough to let her take a shower. To her, water meant more than gold. It meant dignity. It meant feeling alive again. She saw a man walking slowly, carrying a worn-out bag on his shoulder. His name was Daniel, a simple worker returning home after a long shift. His face looked tired, his steps heavy. He wanted nothing more than to close his door and forget the world outside. The alien woman stepped forward. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Please, human, I have only $3. Can I shower at your home?" Her words hung in the air, broken by the sounds of the city traffic. Daniel stopped. His heart skipped a beat. He had never heard such a request before. He looked at her carefully. She was thin, weak, and her silver eyes shone with something he could not name. Was it fear, or was it hope? He did not know. For a long moment, he said nothing. His mind raced with doubts. Who was she? Why would she ask for a shower? Was this a trap? Would letting her inside bring danger? He knew his world was not safe. Aliens in the city were often hunted, sold, or treated as less than nothing. Helping her could cost him everything. But her voice broke the silence again, softer this time. "Please, I don't need food, I don't need a bed, just water, just to wash." She held out the $3, her hand shaking. It was all she had. Daniel felt a pull inside his chest, a battle between reason and compassion. He should walk away. He should say no, but his feet refused to move. His heart whispered louder than his fear. "Follow me," he said at last. His voice was low, almost reluctant, but he knew he had made his choice. The alien woman gasped. Her lips trembled as tears filled her eyes. She nodded quickly and followed him, clutching her $3 like a lifeline. They walked through the narrow streets. Neon lights flickered above them, casting broken shadows on the ground. Daniel's apartment was small, hidden in an old building where neighbors minded their own business. The walls were cracked, the elevator broken, and the air smelled faintly of rust and smoke. When they entered, the alien stopped at the door. Her eyes widened. For her, this small apartment looked like a palace. There was warmth here, a light that felt safe. She whispered, "Thank you, human," as though the words carried her entire soul. Daniel avoided her eyes. He pointed toward the bathroom. "There, the shower is there." His tone was firm, but inside he felt nervous. Why was he doing this? He did not understand. The alien walked slowly to the bathroom. She placed the $3 on the small wooden table near the door. Her fingers brushed against the surface as though she wanted to leave behind more than money. She wanted to leave behind her gratitude. Daniel listened as the water began to run. The sound filled the apartment, strange and heavy. He stood still, staring at the dollars on the table. He could feel the weight of a choice that was changing his life. Inside the bathroom, the alien touched water for the first time in days, maybe weeks. The dirt on her skin washed away. Her silver hair, hidden under dust, began to shine faintly. Her scars told a story Daniel had yet to hear. As the minutes passed, he felt something growing inside him. Not fear, but curiosity. Who was she? Why was she here? And why did he feel as though this one small act of kindness would pull him into a world far larger than his own? He did not know the answers yet, but he knew one thing. His life would never be the same again. The water kept running in the bathroom, and Daniel stood near the door, staring at the 3 crumpled dollars left on his table. He had not touched them. He did not want to. To him, it felt wrong to take anything from her, but still, their presence on the table reminded him that this was not just kindness. It was a strange bargain, one that had already tied him to a stranger. The building creaked as a train passed by outside. The walls shook lightly. The sound of dripping water mixed with the rumble. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. He wanted to believe this would be simple. He would let her shower. She would leave, and that would be the end. But a voice inside him whispered that nothing would ever be that simple. After some time, the bathroom door opened slowly. Steam rolled out into the hallway. The alien stepped out. Her skin was pale but glowing now. The dust and dirt were gone. Her silver hair fell around her shoulders, damp and shining. Her clothes were still torn, but her eyes carried a light that had not been there before. Daniel froze. She looked different. She looked alive. For a moment he wondered if this was the same fragile creature he had let in. She clutched the edge of her sleeve nervously, and her voice was soft. "Thank you, human. I will go now." But her feet did not move. She glanced toward the door, then back at him. Her eyes flickered with something deeper, fear, exhaustion, maybe even hope. Daniel's chest tightened. He should let her go. That was safer. That was what his neighbors would expect. But as he thought of her stepping back into the cold night with nothing but $3 and broken clothes, something in him refused to allow it. "You don't have to go yet," he said. His own words surprised him. His voice was not firm this time. It was quiet, almost uncertain, but he meant it. The alien blinked. She did not understand at first. I cannot stay. They will find me," she whispered. Her silver eyes moved quickly, scanning the room, the window, the shadows, as if hunters would burst through at any second. Daniel frowned. He stepped closer but kept his distance. "Who will find you?" he asked. His question hung in the air like a challenge. She pressed her lips together. Her hands trembled. Finally, she whispered, "The traitors, they hunt people like me. We are taken, sold, treated as nothing. I escaped, but they follow, they never stop." Her voice broke on the last words. Daniel's breath caught. He had heard rumors before, stories about aliens captured and sold in secret markets. But seeing her here, real and trembling, made those rumors sharp and true. He looked at the $3 again and realized how much weight they carried. It was not money, it was survival, the last piece of hope she had clung to. "You're safe here," Daniel said. Though he was not sure if it was true, his words felt heavy in the air, heavier than he expected. The alien's eyes widened. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Her voice was full of suspicion, almost as if she was afraid his kindness would turn into betrayal. Daniel hesitated. His mind searched for an answer. He did not know why. Maybe it was the way her voice cracked when she begged. Maybe it was the scars on her skin. Maybe it was because no one else would. He simply said, "Because no one else did." Her lips parted. Her breath caught. For the first time since entering his apartment, she allowed herself to sit. She sank onto the old couch, her hands folded tightly, as though afraid it would vanish if she let go. The room fell silent except for the hum of the city outside. Daniel sat across from her. His eyes studied her closely. She was young, maybe not much older than 20 in human years. Her face, now clean, showed sharp but delicate features. Her eyes carried both wisdom and pain far beyond her age. Minutes passed in silence, until finally, Daniel stood and walked into the kitchen. He poured her a glass of water and placed it on the table. "Drink," he said simply. She stared at it, hesitant at first. Then she took it in both hands, sipping slowly. Her shoulders relaxed, and for the first time, she closed her eyes as if finding peace in something so small. Outside, the sound of voices rose in the hallway. Neighbors talking, a door slammed. Laughter echoed. The alien's body tensed again. Her eyes darted to the door. Daniel noticed and spoke quickly. "Don't worry, they won't know." He tried to sound calm, but even he felt uneasy. For a moment, their eyes met. Human and alien. Two souls who should have never crossed paths. Yet here they were, bound by $3, a shower, and a choice that could not be undone. Daniel did not know it yet, but letting her stay would change everything. The hunters were closer than he thought, and the quiet safety of his small apartment was already cracking under the weight of danger that followed her. The night grew darker outside, but inside Daniel's small apartment, the silence was heavy. The alien girl sat on the couch, her hands folded tightly on her lap. Her damp silver hair clung to her shoulders, and though her body looked clean now, her spirit still carried the weight of fear. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on her. He wanted to ask questions, but he hesitated. He could see she was fragile, like glass ready to break, yet the mystery inside her was stronger than his patience. Finally, he spoke. "What's your name?" His voice was calm, softer than before. The alien lifted her eyes slowly. "Lyra," she whispered. Her voice carried a melody that sounded different from human tongues, but gentle enough to understand. "Lyra," Daniel repeated, testing the sound of it. "Why did you come here?" "Why me?" She looked down at her hands. Her fingers trembled. "Because you looked human enough to listen," she said, her lips curved in the smallest, saddest smile. "Others would have turned away or sold me." Her words struck him like a blade. He knew she was right. The city was not kind to strangers, especially not to aliens. He thought of the traitor she mentioned earlier. He had seen their shadows before, men who whispered in alleys and carried eyes too cold to be human. Lyra continued, her voice breaking. "I was taken from my home. My people, we were scattered. Some were sold, some were lost. I escaped when they moved me through the docks. I had nothing left. Only these $3. I thought if I could wash away the dirt, I could still feel alive, even if only for a moment." Daniel's chest tightened. He had lived in this city his whole life, but he had never known suffering like hers. Her story made his own struggles feel small. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "Why do they hunt your kind?" he asked. Lyra's eyes shone with pain. "Because we are valuable, not for who we are, but for what we can do," she said. "Our blood carries energy. Our minds connect to frequencies beyond machines. They use us like tools, like fuel, like trophies to them. We're not people. We are property." Daniel felt a surge of anger in his veins. He hated the way her voice cracked as she spoke. He hated the thought of anyone treating her like a thing to be bought and sold. He clenched his fists. "Not here," he said firmly. "Not while you're with me." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, as if she did not believe him. Trust was foreign to her. Her life had been full of chains, lies, and cruelty. Yet something in Daniel's tone carried truth. She wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe him. Hours passed as she told him more. Not everything, but enough. She spoke of the stars, of ships that crossed silent skies, of families torn apart, and of the cold cages where she once sat. Her voice shook, but Daniel listened without interruption. His heart burned with every detail. When her words finally faded, the apartment felt different. It no longer felt like a space alone. It felt like a fragile sanctuary, built not by walls but by choice, his choice to let her in, her choice to trust him. Lyra's body sagged with exhaustion. She leaned back on the couch, her eyes heavy. "I'll leave by morning," she whispered. "I cannot bring you danger. The traitors will find me. They always do." Daniel shook his head. "No, you're not leaving." His voice was stronger now. "If they come, they'll deal with me first." Lyra blinked at him, confused, her lips parted as if to argue. But no words came. No one had ever stood for her. No one had ever offered safety without asking for something in return. The thought left her speechless. Outside, the city roared with life, neon lights buzzing, engines echoing in the distance. But inside that small room, something rare was being born, a fragile bond between human and alien, between kindness and survival. Daniel did not know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew this. Her story had become his, her fight had become his, and deep inside, he felt the first spark of something he could not explain, something greater than fear, greater than reason. And though neither of them spoke it out loud, they both understood. From this night forward, their lives were no longer separate. They were tied together by $3, a shower, and a choice that could never be undone. Morning light slipped through the cracks of Daniel's window, soft and golden. The city outside was already alive with noise, cars rushing, voices echoing, footsteps pounding against concrete. But inside the apartment, the world felt slower, quieter, almost safe. Lyra sat at the small wooden table, her damp hair braided loosely over one shoulder. She wore the same torn clothes, though washed now. Daniel had placed a clean towel around her shoulders the night before. He had not asked her to leave, and she had not argued again. For the first time in weeks, she had slept without fear. Daniel stood in the kitchen, pouring water into 2 cups. He glanced at her often, trying not to stare. She was not like anyone he had ever met. Her presence made the room feel different, heavier but warmer at the same time. "Do you want tea?" he asked. His voice was careful. He wasn't sure if she even liked tea. Lyra tilted her head. "Curious. Tea?" she repeated, as though the word was strange to her tongue. He nodded, pushing the cup toward her. She reached for it slowly, fingers brushing against it for the first time. Her skin was cooler than his, but her touch carried a weight that made his chest tighten. She sipped carefully, then let out a small laugh. "It tastes like leaves," she said. Daniel smiled despite himself. It had been years since he'd laughed over something so small. "That's exactly what it is," he replied. The bond between them grew quietly in moments like this. They did not need grand gestures. Every glance, every word, every act of kindness stitched them closer together. Later, Lyra insisted on helping with chores. She washed the few dishes stacked in the sink. Her movements were slow at first, awkward, as if she was unfamiliar with such tasks. But she watched Daniel carefully, copying the way he moved. Soon her hands found rhythm, and she smiled faintly at her small success. Daniel leaned against the counter, watching. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I want to," she answered simply. Her silver eyes shone with determination. "I can't just take, I must give something back." Her words stayed with him. He realized she wasn't only surviving. She was fighting to keep her dignity. He respected that more than he expected. Days passed like this. One evening they sat together by the window. Daniel explained the glowing signs outside, the shops, the endless noise of the human city. Lyra listened with fascination, asking questions about everything. Why do humans build so high? Why do they fill their air with light, even at night? Why do they always hurry? Her curiosity made Daniel see his world through different eyes. He had never thought about those things, but when she asked, the answers seemed harder to find. He realized how much humans took for granted, things that were strange and new to her. But not all moments were peaceful. Lyra often startled at small sounds, footsteps in the hallway, voices outside the door. Once when someone knocked on a neighbor's door, she nearly dropped her cup. Her body shook, her eyes wide with fear. "They won't find you here," Daniel told her again, trying to reassure her, but deep down, he knew danger was creeping closer. He had noticed unfamiliar men near the building, standing too long. Watching too closely, he pretended not to notice, but the unease sat heavy in his chest. One night, while Daniel was cooking, Lyra stood by the window, staring at the city below. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Why are you doing this for me?" Daniel paused, the pan sizzling in his hand. He turned to look at her. "Because no one else would," he said, the same words he had spoken before, but this time with more certainty. She looked at him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time, she smiled fully. It was a smile filled with gratitude, one that made the dark room feel brighter. Still, shadows followed them. Daniel knew it each time he left for work. He saw the traders in the distance, their black coats, their searching eyes. He hurried home faster each day, afraid of what he might find, afraid that one day the apartment would be empty. Lyra, too, sensed the threat. She said nothing, but Daniel caught her staring at the door often, as though expecting it to burst open. Yet in those quiet hours together, she began to trust. She laughed softly at his jokes. She listened to his stories, and she even began to share more of her own, small pieces of her world among the stars. Every night, when she finally closed her eyes to sleep, Daniel would sit in the chair by the window, keeping watch. He told himself it was to protect her, but deep inside he knew it was more. He was protecting the bond they had built, fragile yet unbreakable. What neither of them knew was that the hunters had already drawn closer. The whispers in the streets spoke of a silver-eyed alien girl. The shadows in the city grew sharper. The storm was coming, and soon their fragile peace would be shattered. The quiet days did not last. Daniel noticed it first on his way back from work. At the corner of the street, two men stood leaning against a wall, their eyes scanning the crowd. They did not move like locals. Their coats were too dark, their faces too hard, and when Daniel passed by, he felt their eyes follow him. He pretended not to notice. He walked faster, his heart pounding. By the time he reached his apartment door, sweat clung to his back. He unlocked the door quickly, stepped inside, and locked it again. Lyra was sitting by the table, reading the old human book Daniel had given her. Her silver eyes lifted when she saw his face, and her expression changed instantly. "They are here," she whispered, as if she had read his mind. Daniel froze. "You saw them?" he asked. She nodded, her hands trembling. "The traitors, I can feel them. They are close, closer than before." The air in the room grew heavier. Daniel sat down, pressing his hands to his face. He had known this moment would come, but he wasn't ready for how fast it arrived. He looked at her, fragile yet unbroken, and he knew he couldn't just let her go. "They won't take you," Daniel said, his voice low but sharp. "Not while I'm here." But Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. They always take back what escapes. They don't stop. They will hurt you too if you protect me." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes firm. "Then let them try." For a moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of the city outside filled the silence. Horns blaring, footsteps rushing, voices mixing in the night. But inside, the air was tight with fear and determination. That night, Daniel barely slept. He stayed by the window again. But this time his hand gripped the old metal pipe he had kept hidden under the bed. He knew it wouldn't be enough against men like the traitors. But it was something. He refused to be empty-handed. The following evening, the danger stepped closer. Daniel was returning home when he heard footsteps behind him. At first he thought it was nothing, just another passerby, but the steps matched his fast when he was fast, slow when he slowed. He turned a corner, and so did they. He finally spun around, and two men were standing in the shadows. "You've been keeping something that doesn't belong to you," one of them said. His voice was smooth but cold. His eyes were sharp like knives. "Hand her over, and you walk away alive." Daniel's heart raced, but he kept his face steady. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. His voice cracked slightly, but he stood his ground. The men stepped closer, their boots scraping against the pavement. "Don't play dumb. Human, a silver-eyed girl doesn't just vanish. We'll find her, with or without you." Daniel clenched his fists. He forced himself to stay calm. "Then keep looking," he muttered before turning sharply and walking away. His back burned with the weight of their eyes, but he didn't stop until he was inside his building, locking the door behind him. Lyra was waiting. She stood the moment he entered. "You saw them," she said. Her voice was quiet but full of dread. Daniel nodded. "They know. It's only a matter of time before they come here." Lyra's hands shook as she pressed them to her chest. "You should let me go, Daniel. It's the only way. If they find me here, they'll destroy everything you have." Daniel stepped closer, his voice hard. "No, I'm not letting you go. Do you hear me? You asked me why I help you. This is why, because no one else will stand for you, because someone has to." Her silver eyes widened, and for a moment she looked as though she might cry. She wanted to argue, but her voice failed her. She could only whisper, "They will kill you." "Then they'll have to try," Daniel answered. That night, something changed in Lyra. For weeks, she had carried only fear and desperation. But now, watching this human stand against a threat far bigger than him, she felt something spark inside her, something she had buried deep. She moved closer to him, her voice soft but steady. "There's something you don't know about me," she said. Her fingers trembled as she touched the edge of the table. "I am not only what they say, not only a prize to be hunted." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra took a slow breath. "I can do things they fear. That's why they want me back. They want my power, not just my body." Daniel stared, confused and cautious. "What kind of power?" Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. And for the first time, Daniel felt a shiver run through him. She was more than he had imagined, more than even she had shown, and now, the danger around them carried a new weight. The traitors were closing in, and soon they would come for her. But Daniel knew this was no longer about hiding. It was about fighting. It was about surviving together. The apartment no longer felt safe. Every sound from the hallway made Daniel tense. Every shadow outside the window looked like danger. He had lived in this place for years, but now it felt like a cage closing in. Lyra sat quietly on the couch, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Her face was calm, but her hands betrayed her nerves. They trembled slightly as she folded them together. Daniel could see the storm inside her. "They will come soon," Lyra whispered. Her voice was soft, almost like a warning carried on the wind. "They won't wait much longer." Daniel paced the room. His mind spun with choices, but none felt good enough. He stopped and turned to her. "Then we leave before they get here." Her eyes widened. "Leave? Where would we go?" "Anywhere," Daniel answered firmly. "As long as it's not here. If we move fast, they won't catch us." Lyra shook her head. "They have ways of tracking. They don't let go once they mark someone." She hesitated, then added quietly, "But if we move together, maybe we can stay ahead. Maybe—" Daniel grabbed the small duffel bag from under his bed. He stuffed it with clothes, a few tools, and the little money he had. He looked around the room one last time, realizing he was leaving everything behind, but none of it mattered compared to protecting her. Lyra stood and placed her 3 crumpled dollars back in his hand. He tried to give them back, but she shook her head. "Keep it. It belongs to you now. You gave me more than I paid for." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He tucked the money away carefully, not because of its value, but because of what it meant. It was no longer just money. It was a bond between them. They planned quickly. Daniel knew back streets, tunnels under the city, places the traders might not search right away. Lyra listened, adding her own strange knowledge. She spoke of feeling the hum of machines, of sensing frequencies. Daniel didn't understand it, but he trusted her. When the night fell, they slipped out. The streets were alive with neon, lights flashing against rain-slick pavement. Daniel kept his hood up, his steps steady. Lyra walked close behind him, her silver eyes hidden under a scarf he had given her. Every turn carried risk. Every corner felt like a trap. Twice they had to duck into alleys as dark figures passed by, traders with cold eyes, scanning faces. Daniel's hand gripped the metal pipe hidden in his bag, his heartbeat hammering. At one point, Lyra touched his arm. "Wait," she whispered, her eyes closed for a moment. Daniel didn't understand, but then she pulled him back just as 2 men stepped out ahead, scanning the street. They would have walked right into them if not for her warning. Daniel stared at her, realizing her gift was more than words. She could sense things, almost like hearing danger before it arrived. "How did you—" he started. "No time." She cut him off, pulling him toward a side path. Her grip was firm, her fear sharp, but her trust in him was clear. They moved deeper into the city's underbelly, abandoned tunnels that smelled of rust and damp stone. Daniel's flashlight flickered against walls covered in graffiti. The silence was thicker here, broken only by the drip of water. Finally, they stopped to rest in a hidden alcove. Daniel leaned against the wall, his breath heavy. Lyra sat close beside him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You should have let me go," she said quietly. "You risked too much for me." Daniel turned his head, his voice steady. "I told you before, I'm not letting you go. Not now, not ever." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she reached out and touched his hand without fear. Her fingers were cool, but her touch was steady. "You gave me more than safety. You gave me something I thought I lost, hope." The words sank into Daniel's heart like fire. He squeezed her hand gently. His answer was simple but firm. "Then we hold on to it together." But their moment of peace was short. A noise echoed down the tunnel. Heavy footsteps, too many to be chance. The traders had followed, their shadows stretched across the stone walls. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter now, a silver light piercing the dark. Daniel saw the strength in her face, the hidden power she had only hinted at. For the first time, he understood. She was not just running, she was preparing to fight. Daniel stood beside her, his pipe gripped tight. He knew the battle ahead was more than he could handle. But he wasn't alone anymore. Together, they had a chance. As the footsteps drew closer, the air grew colder. Lyra whispered one final promise, her voice carrying both fear and fire. "They will not take me again, Daniel. Not while you stand with me." The tunnel was dark, but the footsteps behind them grew louder, echoing off the damp stone walls. Daniel tightened his grip on the metal pipe, his heart racing. He had fought men before, But never hunters like these. These were professionals, and they would not stop until Lyra was taken. Lyra stood at his side, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. The light from them reflected against the wet stone, painting the tunnel with an otherworldly shine. Her breathing was steady now, calm in a way that unsettled Daniel. She no longer looked like the frightened girl he had first seen. She looked like someone ready to face her fate. The traders emerged from the shadows, 4 of them, tall and armed, their coats dragged across the ground, and their eyes gleamed with cruel hunger. The leader stepped forward, his voice cold. "Hand her over, human. You don't know what you're protecting." Daniel stepped in front of Lyra, raising the pipe. His voice shook but carried steel. "If you want her, you go through me." The men laughed, the sound bouncing cruelly in the tunnel. One moved closer, but before he could strike, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice rang like a blade cutting the silence. "No, this ends now." Her eyes flared, and the air around her vibrated. Daniel felt the pressure in his chest. As if the tunnel itself had come alive, the traders stumbled back in shock, their laughter fading into silence. One shouted, "She's awakened! Stop her!" But it was too late. Silver light poured from her hands. Not fire, not lightning, but something stranger, purer. It surged like waves, crashing through the tunnel. The stone trembled, dust rained from the ceiling, and the traders were thrown back against the walls, their weapons clattering to the ground. Daniel shielded his eyes, but he did not move away. He could feel her power wash over him, but it did not harm him. Instead, it felt like warmth, like standing under sunlight after years of cold. The traders tried to rise, but Lyra's voice cut through the air, steady and fierce. "You will not take me again. You will not take anyone again." Her words carried more than sound. They carried force. The men collapsed, their bodies shaking under the weight of her power. Finally, the tunnel fell silent. Only the sound of water dripping from the ceiling remained. Daniel lowered the pipe, staring at her in awe. She stood tall, her silver eyes dimming back to their normal glow. Her chest rose and fell with exhaustion, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Daniel stepped forward carefully. "You never told me you could do that." Lyra turned to him, her expression soft but tired. "I didn't want to. Power draws chains. The less they see, the longer I stay free." He understood. She had not been hiding weakness. She had been hiding strength, a strength so dangerous that others would do anything to control it. As they walked deeper into the tunnel, away from the fallen traders, Daniel asked, "So what now? Where do we go?" Lyra reached in her pocket and pulled out something small, something Daniel had seen before. The 3 crumpled dollars. She unfolded them, and for the first time, he noticed faint glowing symbols woven into the paper. Markings not human. Markings that pulse softly like a heartbeat. Daniel's eyes widened. "That money. It's not just money, is it?" Lyra shook her head. "It's a key, a fragment of my people's legacy. With this, I can find others like me, scattered, hiding, waiting. It's worth more than any treasure the traders dream of." Daniel stared at the glowing paper, realizing how much weight those $3 truly carried. They weren't a payment for a shower. They were a link to something much greater, a future far beyond this city. She looked at him, her silver eyes soft. "I cannot do this alone. Will you come with me?" His answer was immediate, without hesitation, yes. And so, side by side, they left the tunnel, stepping into the unknown behind them. The city still roared, the traders still hunted, but ahead of them lay something larger, something greater, a bond between human and alien, born from kindness, forged in danger, and strengthened by hope. Together, they were no longer running, they were beginning.